Good afternoon, everyone. Please allow me, Juman Deraniye, to welcome you all to the fourth annual English Language Conference 2026, jointly organized by the Queen Rania Teacher Academy and Georgia State University. This year's conference theme, Inclusive English Teaching in a Changing World, reflects our shared commitment to creating learning environments where every student feels seen, valued, and empowered to succeed. Over the course of this conference, educators, researchers, and practitioners from around the world are coming together to exchange ideas, share experiences, and explore innovative approaches to English language teaching in today's rapidly evolving educational landscape. At QRTA, the mission has always centered on empowering educators and improving the quality of teaching and learning through professional development, collaboration, and innovation. Together with GSU, this partnership continues to build bridges between global expertise and local educational impact, making this conference an important platform for meaningful dialogue and professional growth. Before we begin, I would like to encourage everyone to actively participate in today's session. As you listen to the presentation, please feel free to prepare your questions and share them in the chat box throughout the session. We will have a Q&A segment at the end where the speaker will address as many of your questions and comments as possible. It is now my pleasure to introduce our speaker, Ms. Anna Machura, Chair of TEFL Kuwait Neurolinguistics Special Interest Group, UKCPD Standards Office Accredited Speaker, Accredited Neurodiversity Specialist, and Therapist. She brings extensive experience and valuable insights in the field of English language education, particularly the area of utilizing neurocognitive and therapeutic insights, as well as brain science to transform present-day pedagogy and didactics. Today, Ms. Machura will be speaking with us about the neuro-inclusive edge, applying cognitive research, cyberpsychology, and therapy to modern pedagogy and didactics. Please join me in giving a warm welcome to Ms. Anna Machura.
Thank you so much, everybody. Welcome. Thank you for the warm introduction. And well, I cannot wait to share all the insights with you. Again, I hope you're enjoying the conference. And now the session is going to start. So, as mentioned, we encourage reflection and you can take notes, you can prepare your questions to the session. Without further ado, the learning outcomes. Well, it's going to be an interdisciplinary session, so you can expect educational neuroscience insights, cognitive science, some therapeutic elements to it, psychology, and it's going to be practical too, because now when education is undergoing a massive change, we need a new toolkit. We need a roadmap. So some adaptations and arrangements, you are going to prepare a new one, a refreshed approach after this session. And I'm humbled and I'm so happy to share those things with you. We'll add the human element to it as well. While we're entering digital spaces these days, it is so important to remain human in that process, to think about emotions and what makes our sessions irresistible, different, unique. And the first question to you is, what does neuro-inclusive edge mean to you? We have different backgrounds, experiences, different cultures, and different students. So I wonder what it means. Well, there might be comments right now in the chat. I look at those later, but yes, reflection starts now. So I think that you may think here now of experiences from the class. However, for me, it's very important to include everyone. Inclusion, not just the lesson plan, okay? Not just different topics, but neurodiversity. We have different minds sitting in front of us in the classroom. So knowing how the brain processes information, there are different ways of learning, etc. And of course, the cultures and backgrounds as mentioned. So far, what neurocognitive insights have you heard of? I'm really, really curious. Is it something new to you? And what new domains could you implement in ELT? But this session is not going to be only about language. Sometimes the content, right? Like CLIL, content and a language integrated learning. So a multidisciplinary approach. However, whatever we do in learning communication, processing is the key aspect. Processing and acquisition using the knowledge that we acquire, as having knowledge without being able to use it later on is actually useless. So let's make it productive and important. 3 things to look at: the cognitive load, the emotional response, and the linguistic adaptness. So this is my approach that I apply to sessions with learners of different age, and again, neurodivergent learners as well. We are all neurodiverse, this term, let me explain. Different minds, and neurodivergent individuals, whenever I refer to that group, means those having some specific learning differences or neurodevelopmental conditions. So we want to be inclusive here. And that's why it's so important to understand the impact of language processing and acquisition. So the input to the brain. A very important element as well, I would say crucial, emotions, as they serve as a filter later on, how all the information, the new knowledge is processed and used later on. So question to you, another one. How could you decrease the cognitive load for your students? Any adaptations now with AI and different applications using authentic materials? There are different ways for you to use, but I'm really curious what you're using right now or what you've tried. The element about emotions, triggers and blocks. Sometimes we can observe them in our students, and it's not about motivation. It's not about your lesson plan or the structure. It may be just something individual, and we as educators, teachers, being ready to help at any stage, should tell our learners about that. What are the triggers? Could be the sound, could be maybe the environment, meaning distractions, colors, temperature. When we meet in the 4 walls in the classroom, of course, everybody would come with some kind of baggage, experiences, etc. So the brain has to be ready for learning. Important key point. What are the signs of linguistic proficiency? Sometimes we focus only on the reactions, verbal elements, but in fact, as we know, learning is a process, a complex one. So everything is happening internally, and then we will see the outcome later on. There should be a few areas to look at and explore with your learners. So communication, of course, then cultures, mentioned again, connections, building meaningful relationships. So the time in the classroom is precious. And if we spend it on, yes, learning about things, not just the knowledge per se, but about how we perceive the world. Perception is everything. And sometimes even the lesson or even the session, you might have a different perception about that. Naturally, psychology inside now. What happens is generalizations, distortions, or deletions. So even when the knowledge is presented out there, each brain is going to interpret that in a different way. Comparing things, okay, finding similarities, associations, patterns, and we are in different communities. What I mean here is not just the school community, but also in the broader sense, like the school or later on communities, society, and connecting with others globally. Well, now, instruction, delivery, and assessment. Crucial points for every teacher, of course. I suggest a different approach to it. The modern pedagogy is about using UDL, that stands for Universal Design for Learning. Inclusive, yes, brain-friendly, a holistic approach with differentiation. So every learner would have a chance to participate, to be visible, seen, heard, and really feel emotions that they belong. So we, as teachers, can allow different ways of delivery, instruction, and assessment. So those 3 things all together will form this new concept, a new paradigm. We should focus, I believe, more on skills, strengths, rather than just tasks. What are some clever ways to boost the brain power than in the classroom? Associations, always patterns. Actually, brains are wired and love finding connections. Okay. Mnemonics, tools for remembering, strengthening memory skills, and brain gym. Lots of movement going around the classroom. You can have something called the gallery walk. When one class, for example, is preparing an activity, they're working in a collaborative way, and you can use those things, put them up on the walls or in some sections with the same group. Then another group comes back, or you can reuse those things again and again, depending on the level, etc., and adding some things. Hexagonal thinking is a fantastic way to engage your learners. So sometimes teachers say that, well, there's that limited time frame, something that you can do, you're able to in a given session. Yes, but try to reuse things, materials, or use some authentic ones. So the fresh approach, novelty, curiosity, sparking conversations. Okay, a decipher wheel, perhaps decoding, acrostics, acronyms. It's all about recalling the ability to be able to use the knowledge and find connections, joining the dots, as we say. Music, rhythm, and questioning. Question everything, like the Socratic method, okay? Encouraging logic, critical thinking skills. In all that, the element of mental health in education plays a huge role. So, of course, we're talking here now about the mind, body, brain, yes, but most importantly, let us create the psychological safety for our learners. Otherwise, learning will not happen, or it's going to be very, very hard for you as a teacher to engage and your learners to focus, okay? And again, remember things, to feel the meaning, the purpose. Why am I here? Because the brain will be asking those questions. Is it important? Etc. So the why behind the lesson. They need to know what they are learning. It is safe, no judgment, etc. Well-being, yes. And self-regulation comes after that. Emotional literacy. I put this first. So this is not just for our learners, but for teachers too. Emotional intelligence starts with self-awareness. So I suggest neurojournals for my learners. They can just note down their reactions, responses, what is happening in the lesson. So not just the raw knowledge or a given topic that is discussed later on. That will help you and them to self-regulate. Some may need co-regulation, which is helping them to do that. Ultimately, okay, motivation, focus, engagement, and sometimes ups and downs. That is part and parcel of life. And building resilience. How will you bounce back from a challenging experience later on? We can talk about like maybe failing an exam or just expectations. A conversation about expectations, setting the barrier there as well, or where we're at, what you really need, and how you can adopt, what skills do you need, important, rather than focusing on one task, one event there. So maintaining our well-being, reducing stress, key point again. Neuroplasticity, what is it? I wonder. So in the chat, now you can share neuroplasticity. What is that? I quickly explain that it's brain plasticity and the ability of our brain to form new connections, to rewire, we can say. What fires together, wires together. So if the lesson is a great experience for everyone, well, your learners would love to come back and experience this over and over again. We're creating positive associations, memories, experiences. We are human beings. We are here right now. And I hope that this session also is going to be a very positive experience for you. As mentioned, everyone might perceive things in a slightly different way. Therefore, the engagement, the social interaction building relationships, and getting feedback with self-reflection also is going to help us in that teaching learning process. I mentioned co-regulation, which is helping the learner, doing it with someone. Interoception, the responses from your body internally. We generally talk about 5 sensory systems, but how about 8 sensory systems? Okay, adding proprioceptive skills, our awareness of the environment where we are. Key point, as we are now entering digital spaces. So the responses are different. What we know right now, or we have experienced, is the classroom. But just one thing, quite interesting, I believe, is sonoception, the reaction in the virtual environment. And there are other things related to it. They will come up later in the slide. But happy hormones, very quickly, DOSE, the acronym DOSE. I wonder if you know what it stands for. If you're thinking about dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, and endorphins, you are right, spot on. And why emotions and why hormones? Okay, all that. Uh, this is a mindful approach, a holistic one, because, well, dopamine is related to setting goals, rewards. We want that. We are learning. Yes. Also, sometimes regulating hormones naturally uh, can serve as a mood stabilizer or a painkiller, right? So isn't that great? We can use that knowledge, educational neuroscience, you know already a lot about the brain, mind, and now how to go back to that state of balance. You don't need to do anything else or add to your lesson plan, just sharing that knowledge. Okay. Techniques to reduce anxiety, such as 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, just 5 things that you can see, 4 that you can touch, 3 you can hear, then something you can smell or taste. Anything counts. Mindful presence here and now. Deep breathing, it's absolutely up to you. You can do that at the beginning of the lesson, during the session, or at the end, but just embedding it into that process. Multisensory. Okay, I mentioned movement and setting healthy boundaries. And I'm not talking only about communication in the classroom, being respectful, etc., and understanding that we learn in a different way, right? Neurodiversity, etc. And some learners might need longer period for processing. Okay, or the response might be different than we expect. A verbal, non-verbal communication key. However, speaking of can be anybody, be your different self. Uh, a new phenomenon called escapism. So, very briefly explained, but please mind that and you can share it with your learners. So, if there's no connection or withdrawal or kind of masking in the classroom, you're trying to find a friend in simple terms, but you cannot fit in. You may try to find a different place to do that and to escapism in those virtual spaces. But the world there looks a little bit different. So the Neuro-Inclusive Edge now incorporates not just the classroom, but the metaverse, cyberspace, and if you wish, social media interactions too. We want to increase the level of engagement in the class, definitely. How to do that? Well, incorporating things that your learners already know. So perhaps, increasing the cultural awareness or knowledge about environments and science beyond. I mentioned CLIL. Yes, a very popular concept now. Creating smart education ecosystems. AR, yes, in the classroom, learning about a given topic, talking about metaverse. Now, the misconception these days is that if you're working with Gen Z or Gen Alpha, they're digital natives. They know how to use, how to navigate, I'd say, the environment, digital one. Is that true? Have you asked them? Well, this is the thing. I believe we should be using AI, yes, but we're learning AI, not to just use as it is. Comparing, if you buy a car and if you're an adult, you still need some kind of training. It doesn't mean that you're okay, ready to jump in there and ready. Not really. The second point after engagement is inspiring minds. We want this lesson to be irresistible, something fantastic that I cannot find individually at home. So I really want to come and enjoy that experience. Immersive learning, simulations, yeah, gaming, maybe some strategies, etc. Micro learning, replacing habits that are not really serving the mind or the brain, and collaboration between schools across the world. I suggest projects, international projects, fantastic, for your learners to just share the knowledge outside of the four walls, I say. Personalized learning, yes. Encouraging agency, real-time collaborations with the fast access to information. What we're trying to do is teach our learners the do's and don'ts. Okay, so be very much aware. It's about protection. The holistic approach is like be very, very careful there. For example, embodied simulation. Do they know that VR shares the same mechanism as the brain? Interesting, isn't it? So we have just the impression that it's like in the classroom. Or the implications of virtual togetherness in a mediated environment. So we are exploring the digital spaces. I believe you will all agree that disinhibition effect, where we tend to share, overshare information, important when this is social media there, or self-disclosure in general. Please tell your learners about it. Some cyberbullying may happen too, or increased fear and anxiety about non-consensual content leakage. Just an example, Ray-Ban Meta glasses. All right, I think these things are important to know. From sociology to neurosociology, this is what is happening, that movement, that shift. So instead of traditional and intuitive, socially determined interactions, what is happening? Avatars, agents, and embodied simulations. A totally new experience. So again, questions to you. What are some features of socially intuitive interactions, just as we know them from the classroom? Okay. And if you were to explain embodied simulation to someone, what does that mean? Okay. How can digital spaces alter human perception? You can even start a conversation like that in the class. All right. I'm very curious about your answers there. So, the sense of presence in virtual reality, as a recap, is different, right? It's subjective. And being there, like fully immersed, having the sad VR experience is gonna alter, change our response, the emotional response. And what do we experience there? Well, haptics. That feeling and mental state happening at the same time, faster, quicker. And of course, this is cognition as well, how we're processing all that. Now, of course, I'm just flagging some things. They do not have to be threats. However, protection is better than cure. And cognitive overload mentioned, relationships, building, again, that sense of presence here right now. Human beings, remember, not human doings. Brain rot, escapism, AI anxiety, it's all there on the slide. So this is a recap for you. And I wonder which one is the top for you. Okay, what do you want to discuss with your students there? Data privacy, techno stress. Sometimes we feel that the fear of missing out. Yeah, there is so much to learn, to take on that you have to use. No, just slow down, mindfulness, rethink, reflect, and then ask your learners, then act, because it's very easy to go on the hype train, as I say, right? On and off. There's always something new, but let's be smart about how we tackle those elements. Integration of AI, absolutely, I encourage that. At the same time, certain elements I'd say require more reflection, discussion. The key points, therapeutic outcomes. I believe there is a future for neurodivergent learners as well, and neurotypical ones. Here, I want to say that we need to learn more about the processes in our minds. What is the response? Social norms that we know now here or outside. We're in an online room right now. Okay, the perception is different. So I believe you are going to agree that the body states, that all in a holistic way is going to impact how we process and what we think about that given element. Real-time feedback, important. Point to finish my presentation, hyperscanning. Well, this is modern pedagogy and didactics, or interbrain synchrony. What it means, I'm curious again about your responses. What it is, that kind of thing. Remodeling social neural networks. Remodeling what? Okay. Remember neuroplasticity, forming new connections, synapses in the brain, new ways of looking at knowledge, communication, etc. So the possible implications for classroom environments, we need to adapt and adjust. This is the time to think about it. And people interacting more, 3, 4, as many as you want, but at the same time, so real time, and with scanning the brains. Interesting, isn't it? We have to know that. Well, as we speak, this is happening. Cyberpsychology, again, protecting minds, all minds. And the message to me at the end is inclusion, okay? Innovation and collaboration. Sharing your experiences, identifying triggers, obstacles, giving solutions, always. And your learners should be in that process. So empowered, noticed, valued. Collaboration at any stage, meaningful shared value. True, as I mentioned, some projects, I organize a lot of them. I'll be very happy to include anyone. Just reach out and we'll include your learners as well. The topic could be environmental protection, cross-generational communication, mental health among the young, the role of AI. We should be talking about that. And yes, our learners will have their own vision as a new generation. So important, right, to consider that as well. These are my ideas about going forward. What else is going to change? Today we've heard some points about education and neuroscience, then mentoring, reflective teaching, the intercultural experience and competence. Thank you so much for the opportunity to share my reflections, my ideas from classrooms. I work with different age groups. And yes, this is the concept, but a new paradigm. I believe the shift in the mindset is important. My recommendations, a recap. Let us strengthen human connections, okay? While using a lot of sources of information, filtering out what is not necessary, mind your brain, okay? Cognitive and mental clarity, I'd say. So quality over quantity, essentially. Encourage self-expression at scale, teach logic, ethics, aesthetics, right? And reduce stress and anxiety at any stage. A roadmap, as promised, for redefining and remodeling that educational excellence. I ask you in a moment, what points have been the most engaging or interesting or something totally new that you want to embed that and put this onto the roadmap as we are entering onto the new trajectory. And the existing concepts, some may stay, some are not fit for purpose anymore. Which ones? Continuous professional development is key in that sense. So again, I'm inviting everyone to get in touch. I give lectures, courses, workshops, etc. happy to share at any stage. Questions? What pedagogical and didactic changes can you make after this session, next week, step by step? What resources will you use to make learning more humanistic? And how will your students experience that change? And how will you make sure that their voice will be better represented? So the agency, encouraging them to participate, share their opinions. Free applications, these are my recommendations. Always good to surprise your students, okay? Ask them, have you used that? Or let's do it in the lesson. Some references, of course, and here is the QR code to a feedback form and to a certificate as well, an additional one. Questions and answers. I can't wait to see your answers, definitely. The hormones you already we're talking about, like dopamine. I saw a few in the chat. Fantastic. You were interested about the virtual space there. So great stuff. Thank you so much now
Thank
for
you.
being here. Yes.
Yeah, thank you. Thank
Ready
you,
for
Miss
questions.
Machura, for such an insightful and engaging session. Your perspective was a holistic one from classrooms to all the way to cyberspace. Um, and it's given us so much to reflect on, I'm sure, as we continue working towards a more inclusive, as you mentioned, and effective language teaching practices, English language in specific. We will now move to the Q&A session. I believe we have a question already. And I would like to invite participants to continue posting their questions and comments in the chat box, and we will address as many of them as time allows. I believe we do have a question from Mr. Abdul Haq Hamoudi. His question is, does the physical environment play a role in all of that?
Oh, yes. Thank you so much for this question. Absolutely. In fact, we should start from what we know. So the physical touch, I say now, ear, interacting, learning from each other before we go to the digital space. So as I mentioned, well, when we allow our learners to express their opinion, very important, okay? Because every session can be different. And emotions, right? What are the triggers? What are the blocks, mental blocks? If we look at each other like through different kind of using different lens, I'd say the holistic lens, everything changes. So you say we are here right now. Some, especially neurodivergent learners, may experience something called like social anxiety, or again, it's about how much you're sharing, or analysis paralysis in that given time, place. Yes, it's like I'm not ready, or I feel overloaded, or can I express that later? Can I go back to it? So rather than expecting things, I think we should have an open mind and an open heart and asking, okay, tell me about your experience. That's why it's so important, like a neuro journal, writing down things, sharing, and sometimes even 5 minutes in a lesson can change absolutely everything, right? You can learn something about yourself. So, yes, using the time wisely when it comes to that physical space before our learners and ourselves, I believe, will enter the digital environment. And as I said, that will differ a lot. Thank you so much.
Thank you. If there aren't any other questions, I just want to thank everyone and the audience for your active participation and thoughtful engagement throughout this session. We hope today's discussion inspires new ideas, meaningful conversations, and continued collaboration among educators and professionals in our field. On behalf of the Queen Rania Teacher Academy and Georgia State University, thank you for being a part of the 4th Annual English Language Conference 2026. We look forward to seeing you in the next sessions, and we wish you a productive and inspiring conference experience. Thank you, everyone, and thank you again, Ms. Machura.
Thank you so much. Well, it's been an amazing session. Thank you so much again. Wishing everyone a fantastic experience and enjoy the conference. So God bless.
Thank
All the
you.
best. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, I believe that's that. So enjoy the rest of the day. I'll be in the room for a couple of minutes in case you need to share something. Thank you so much.